Welcome back to ChapterCast. Today we're exploring one of the most powerful and practical tools in behavior analysis, differential reinforcement. From reducing problem behaviors to teaching new socially significant skills, differential reinforcement is like giving behavior a roadmap. Do this, not that. We'll break down the different types such as DRO, DRA, and DRL and show you how these strategies play out in real life, from the classroom to everyday routines. Stick around because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand the theory, but also how to apply it effectively in your own practice or studies. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where a behavior, either yours or someone else's, just keeps happening, and you think, I wish this would stop? Maybe it's your dog barking nonstop every time the mail carrier walks by, or perhaps it's your little one having a huge tantrum in the middle of the grocery store because you said no to that giant sugary cereal box with the cartoon tiger on it. We've all been there, right? It can feel frustrating, and sometimes it feels like you've tried absolutely everything to make a change. But nothing seems to stick for very long. It's like being on a hamster wheel of behavior, going round and round without getting anywhere new. These moments are a universal part of the human experience. We see patterns of behavior that we'd love to change, but we're not quite sure how to do it effectively. You might try ignoring the behavior, hoping it will just magically disappear into thin air, or maybe you try scolding or pleading, which can sometimes make things even worse, adding more stress to an already tense situation. It's easy to feel a bit lost, wondering if there's a secret handbook for understanding people and pets that you somehow missed. You're not alone in feeling this way. So many of us are looking for a kinder, smarter way to guide behavior in a more positive direction. What if I told you there's a powerful, positive, and scientifically proven approach to changing behavior? It's not about punishment or harsh words. It's a method that's used by professionals, but it's so intuitive and straightforward that anyone can learn to use it in their everyday life. Imagine being able to gently and effectively reduce that constant barking, or turn those public tantrums into calm conversations. This isn't a magic trick. It's a strategy rooted in understanding why a behavior is happening, and then thoughtfully encouraging a better alternative. It's about working with, not against, natural human tendencies to create lasting and meaningful change. This powerful technique is called differential reinforcement. I know, it sounds super technical and academic, like something you'd only hear in a university lecture hall. But stick with me here, because once you break it down, it's actually incredibly simple and practical. Today, we're going to unpack this concept together. We'll explore what it is, how it works, and how you can start using its principles to unlock positive behavior change in your own life. Get ready to add an amazing new tool to your parenting, pet training, or even self-improvement toolkit. It's going to be fun, I promise. So, what is this secret sauce? What is differential reinforcement really? At its heart, it's a beautifully simple idea. It's all about reinforcing the behaviors you want to see more of, while simultaneously making sure you don't accidentally reward the behaviors you want to see less of. Think of it like being a gardener. Two potted plants side by side, one thriving, one wilting. You want your beautiful roses to flourish, so you give them water, you give them sunlight, you give them fertilizer. At the same time, you stop giving those things to the weeds you want to get rid of. You are differentially caring for your garden. You're making it much more rewarding for the roses to grow than for the weeds to thrive. This approach is a cornerstone of behavior modification, and it's based on a fundamental principle. Behavior that is reinforced is more likely to happen again. Reinforcement is just a fancy word for any consequence that makes a behavior stronger. It could be praise, a favorite snack, extra screen time, a warm smile. We are all guided by reinforcement every single day. When you get a compliment on a new outfit, you're more likely to wear it again. When your boss praises your hard work on a project, you feel motivated to keep performing well. It's human nature. Differential reinforcement takes this natural process and turns it into a deliberate and positive strategy. Instead of just focusing on stopping an unwanted behavior, it shifts the focus to building up a desirable one. This is what makes it so powerful and so kind. It's a proactive approach, not a reactive one. For example, instead of just saying, "Stop whining," to a child, you might use differential reinforcement to praise them enthusiastically the moment they use a calm, polite voice to ask for what they want. You are reinforcing the alternative, more desirable behavior, making it the more appealing option for them in the future. Over the course of our little chat today, we're going to dive deep into the different flavors of differential reinforcement. We'll examine specific types such as DRA, DRI, and DRO. Don't worry about the acronyms, we'll make it all crystal clear with tons of relatable, real-life examples. We are going to break down the concepts from Chapter 15 of the Behavior Modification textbook by Raymond Miltenberger in a way that feels less like a lecture and more like a conversation with a friend. By the end, you'll feel empowered to become a behavior detective in your own world, ready to make positive changes happen. So we've talked about this idea of differential reinforcement, this secret sauce for changing behavior. Now let's really get into the nuts and bolts of what it means. Imagine a coin. It has two sides, right? Heads and tails. Differential reinforcement is a lot like that. On one side of the coin, you have a behavior you want to see less of, the problem behavior. This could be your toddler throwing their food on the floor, or your teenager scrolling on their phone instead of doing their homework. We're going to put that behavior on what we call extinction. Now that sounds dramatic, but all it really means is we're going to stop reinforcing it. On the other side of that same coin, you have a behavior you want to see more of. This is the positive, desirable behavior. This could be your toddler putting their spoon nicely on their plate, or your teenager starting their homework without any reminders. This is the behavior that makes you breathe a sigh of relief and think, yes, that's what I'm talking about. This is the behavior we are going to actively and enthusiastically reinforce. We're going to shower it with praise, rewards, or whatever that person finds motivating. So you have one behavior getting all the good stuff, reinforcement, and the other behavior getting, well, nothing. It's a two-part strategy that works together beautifully. This dual approach is what makes differential reinforcement so effective. If you only focus on stopping the problem behavior, you leave a void. The person might not know what they're supposed to do instead. It's like telling someone, don't think about a pink elephant. What's the first thing that pops into your head? A pink elephant, of course. But when you provide a clear, positive alternative and make that alternative super rewarding, you give them a new path to follow. You're not just putting up a stop sign, you're also putting up a big, bright, flashing arrow that says, this way to awesome things. Let's think back to our grocery store example. The child is having a tantrum for this sugary cereal. If you ignore the tantrum, the extinction part, that's half the battle. But the real magic happens when you also find a moment of calm, even a tiny one, and reinforce it. You might say, wow, I love how you are standing so quietly right now. Since you're being so calm, let's pick out a special apple for a snack when we get home. You are reinforcing the alternative behavior of being calm. This teaches a valuable lesson. Tantrums get you nothing, but calm behavior gets you positive attention and maybe even a tasty reward. You are actively teaching them what to do instead. To truly master differential reinforcement, we need to become familiar with its key component, reinforcement itself. As we touched on earlier, reinforcement is anything that happens after a behavior that makes that behavior more likely to occur again. It's the engine that drives so much of what we do. The key word here is anything. What works as a reinforcer for one person might do absolutely nothing for another. My idea of a great reward might be a quiet evening with a good book. For you, it might be tickets to a loud rock concert. It's all personal. This is why becoming a good behavior detective is so important in this process. Think about your daily life for a second. Reinforcement is everywhere, working silently in the background. Your phone buzzes with a notification, you check it, and you see a funny video from a friend. That little moment of enjoyment is reinforcement, and it makes you more likely to check your phone the next time it buzzes. You try a new route to work that avoids a ton of traffic, the time you save, the frustration you avoid. Those are powerful reinforcers that make you more likely to take that new route again tomorrow. We are constantly adjusting our behavior based on the consequences we experience, seeking out the good stuff and trying to avoid the not-so-good stuff. So how does this tie back to changing problem behaviors? Well, often problem behaviors persist because they are, in some way, being accidentally reinforced. That child's tantrum in the grocery store, if it sometimes results in getting the sugary cereal just to make it stop, the tantrum has been reinforced. The dog that jumps on guests? If it gets any attention at all, even someone pushing it down and saying, no, bad dog, that attention can be a form of reinforcement. For a dog that's been alone all day, even negative attention is better than no attention at all. The behavior is working for them, so they keep doing it. Understanding this is a total game changer. It shifts your perspective from seeing a bad kid or a naughty dog to seeing a being who has learned that a certain behavior gets them something they want. The behavior itself isn't the core issue, it's a symptom. The real task is to figure out what they are getting from the behavior and then find a better, more appropriate way for them to get it. This is where differential reinforcement shines. It allows us to stop feeding the problem and start feeding the solution, using the powerful science of reinforcement to guide behavior in a positive and constructive direction. Using differential reinforcement is a lot like being a patient and observant gardener. You can't just throw seeds on the ground and expect a beautiful garden to magically appear overnight. It takes time, consistency, and a little bit of know-how. The first step is to identify the weeds, the specific behaviors you want to reduce. Could you please clarify this? Instead of saying, "My child is being difficult," try to pinpoint the exact behavior, like, "My child yells and throws toys when I say it's time to turn off the TV." The more specific you are, the easier it will be to create a plan. Once you know what weed you're targeting, decide what beautiful flower you want to grow in its place. This is the alternative, desirable behavior. It should serve a similar purpose or simply be a better way to act in that situation. For the child who yells when TV time is over, an alternative could be them saying, "Okay, Mom," or asking, "Can I have 5 more minutes, please?" Nurture that new behavior with attention and praise. Make it the most appealing choice for them. Now comes the most important part: consistent reinforcement and extinction. Every single time the desirable behavior happens, reinforce it immediately. As soon as your child says, "Okay, Mom," respond with a huge smile and, "Thank you so much for turning it off so nicely. You're being such a great listener. Let's go play your favorite board game." Link the good choice to a wonderful outcome. At the same time, if yelling and toy throwing occur, calmly ensure it doesn't get them what they want, such as more TV time or a big reaction from you. This requires patience. You are retraining a brain. It doesn't happen instantly. Old behaviors will pop up. That's normal. It's like a weed trying to regrow. The key is consistency. Keep watering the flowers and ignore the weeds. Over time, you'll see a shift. The new positive behavior will get stronger and more frequent because it leads to the good stuff. You're not just stopping a bad habit, you're building a good one, creating a foundation for positive behavior that can last a lifetime. All right, let's get into the different flavors of this amazing technique. Think of differential reinforcement as a family of superheroes, each with its own special power. The first one we're going to meet is called DRA, which stands for Differential Reinforcement of Alternative Behavior. I know, another acronym, but it's super simple, I promise. DRA is all about reinforcing a specific positive alternative to the problem behavior. You're not just reinforcing any old good behavior, you're picking one that can replace the one you don't want. It's like teaching someone who only knows how to scribble to paint a beautiful picture instead. You're giving them a better option. Let's go back to our friend, the dog who barks like crazy at the mail carrier. The barking is the problem behavior. What's an alternative? Teach the dog to go to its bed and lie down when it sees the mail carrier. Every time the mail carrier approaches and the dog goes to its bed, you throw a party. You give it a super tasty treat. Lots of praise, its favorite squeaky toy. But if the dog barks, it gets nothing. No attention, no treat. Nada. The dog quickly learns, "Hey, barking gets me ignored, but going to my bed gets me a delicious snack and a belly rub. I'm going to my bed." The beauty of DRA is the alternative doesn't have to be the exact opposite. It just has to be a more appropriate choice. Let's say you have a coworker who complains a lot during meetings. The complaining drags everyone down. Instead of sighing and rolling your eyes, use DRA. The moment they offer a constructive solution or a positive comment, jump in and say, "That's a fantastic idea, Sarah. I think that could really work." You are reinforcing contributing productively. You're making it more rewarding to be a problem solver than a complainer. This strategy addresses the person's need to communicate or get attention, but channels that need into a positive outlet. You're not just saying, "Stop that." You're saying, "Try this instead, it's way better." It's constructive and respectful. You're acknowledging that they have something to express and guiding them toward a more effective and positive way of doing it. DRA is widely used because it's flexible and powerful. It builds new skills and makes the right choice the easy and rewarding choice. Now, let's meet another member of the superhero family, DRI. This one is a close cousin to DRA, but with a cool little twist. DRI stands for Differential Reinforcement of an Incompatible Behavior. The key word here is incompatible. This means you are reinforcing a behavior that is physically impossible to do at the same time as the problem behavior. It's like trying to pat your head and rub your tummy at the same time. Wait, people can do that. Okay, bad example. It's like trying to sit down and stand up at the exact same moment. You can't do both. One behavior physically blocks the other. Here's a classic example. Imagine a child who is always touching and grabbing items off the shelves when you're shopping. It's a constant battle of "don't touch that." A great incompatible behavior would be to have the child hold your hand. A great incompatible behavior would be to have the child push the little kid-sized shopping cart. If their hands are busy holding your hand or pushing a cart, they cannot be grabbing things off the shelves. It's physically impossible. Shower them with praise. Give a sticker. You are reinforcing a behavior that makes the problem behavior a non-issue. Let's think of another one. What about a dog that loves to jump up on people when they walk in the door? It's hard to greet guests when you have a 70-pound fur missile launching at them. An incompatible behavior would be to teach the dog to sit. A dog cannot be sitting and jumping at the same time. The moment a guest comes in and the dog sits, it gets praise, it gets pets, maybe a treat from the guest. The jumping is ignored, but the sitting gets reinforced. The dog learns that the best way to get attention is to sit politely. DRI is incredibly effective because it doesn't leave any room for error. The new positive behavior directly competes with and wins against the old problem behavior. It's a brilliant and simple strategy for dealing with behaviors that involve the hands, feet, general physical movement. Instead of a power struggle, you create a situation where the right choice is the only one that can physically happen while also being the most rewarding. It's like setting up a game where everyone wins, and you didn't even have to say stop once. Now that's what I call working smarter, not harder. Okay, so we've met DRA and DRI. Now let's talk about a very special and powerful type of DRA called DRC. That stands for Differential Reinforcement of Communication. This one is a real heart melter because it's all about giving someone a voice. So often, problem behaviors like crying, screaming, and hitting are just a person's desperate attempt to communicate something when they don't have the words. They might be trying to say, "I need a break, I want that, help me, I'm overwhelmed." DRC is about teaching them a better way to say it with their words, signs, pictures. Think about a toddler who points and grunts or cries when they want a cookie from the high shelf. You might guess what they want, but the grunting is the behavior that's happening. Using DRC, you would model the words for them. You might say, "Oh, you want a cookie? Can you say cookie?" The moment they even try to make the coo sound or say the word, you give them the cookie and tons of praise. "Yes, you said cookie. Great job." You are reinforcing their attempt to communicate with words instead of grunts. You are literally teaching them the power of language. This technique is also known as functional communication training, or FCT, because you are teaching a functional way to communicate needs. It's life-changing, especially for individuals who are nonverbal or have language delays. Instead of a child hitting a teacher to escape a difficult task, they can be taught to hand the teacher a break card. When they hand over the card, they are immediately reinforced by being given a short break. The hitting stops because they now have an easier, more effective way to say "I need a minute." It replaces the problem behavior by teaching a functional equivalent. This isn't just for kids either. We can all use a little DRC in our lives. Think about a relationship where one person gives the silent treatment when they're upset. The silent treatment is the problem behavior. Using DRC would mean reinforcing open communication. When they finally say, "I felt hurt when you said that. Thank you for telling me that. I'm listening. Let's talk about it." You are reinforcing the act of talking about feelings instead of shutting down. DRC is all about building bridges of communication where there were once walls of frustration. It empowers people to use their words to get their needs met in a positive way. So far, we've talked about replacing unwanted behaviors with better ones. DRA, DRI. But what if the behavior itself isn't actually bad? What if it's perfectly fine, but it just happens, well, a little too much? This is where our next superhero of behavior change swoops in. Meet DRL, Differential Reinforcement of Low Rates of Responding. I know it sounds like a mouthful, but the idea is simple and brilliant. DRL is the less is more approach. It's not about eliminating a behavior. It's about reducing its frequency to a manageable level. You're basically saying, "I'm cool with you doing that, just not so often." Think about a super enthusiastic student in class. They love to participate, great, but they raise their hand for every question, sometimes not letting others think. You don't want to crush their spirit. This is perfect for DRL. Reinforce a lower rate of hand raising. You might say, "It's fantastic you have so many great answers. New goal, participate 5 times or less, and you'll be a line leader." You're still rewarding participation, but only if it stays at or below a manageable number. DRL isn't all or nothing. It accepts that some behaviors are fine in moderation. Imagine a friend who texts 20 times an hour. You love them, but the constant pings are overwhelming. You don't want them to stop texting forever. With DRL, reinforce a lower texting rate. A few messages over a couple of hours, quick, enthusiastic replies. A flood of texts, slower replies. They learn lower rates get better responses. You're gently shaping behavior without drama. Useful for habits that are acceptable in small doses but problematic when consumed frequently. Are we there yet? Road trip? Eating too many snacks between meals? Checking social media during work hours? The goal isn't elimination. A snack or a question is fine. The goal is balance. DRL teaches self-control and moderation with positive reinforcement, a subtle, powerful tool for fine-tuning behavior, finding the sweet spot between too much and just right. Now that we understand the basic idea of DRL, let's look at a couple of specific ways to use it. Think of these as different game plans. The first one is called full session DRL. With this method, you look at an entire block of time, such as a full session, a whole class period, a full dinner time, or the entire car ride to grandma's house. You set a maximum number of times the behavior is allowed to happen during that whole session. If the person stays at or under that number, they get the reinforcement at the very end of the session. It's like having a budget for your behavior for the whole day. Let's use the "Are we there yet?" example. Before you start a 2-hour car ride, you might say, "Okay, we're going on a long drive." You can ask if we're there yet 3 times. If you ask 3 times or less for the whole trip, when we get to grandma's, we can have ice cream right away. The entire 2-hour trip is the full session. You're counting the total number of times the question is asked. If at the end of the 2 hours the count is 3, 2, 1, or even 0, then boom, ice cream. But if they ask 4 or more times, the deal is off. This method is great for teaching patience and helping someone see the bigger picture over a longer duration. Another way to play the game is with Interval DRL. This approach breaks the big session down into smaller, equal chunks of time or intervals. Instead of the whole 2-hour ride, you might break it down into 4 30-minute intervals. The rule might be that for each 30-minute interval, the behavior can only happen once, or not at all. If they meet the goal for that interval, they might receive a small reinforcer right then and there, such as a sticker or a point towards a bigger prize. If they go over the limit in one interval, they miss out on the reward for that specific interval, but they get a fresh start and a new chance to earn it in the next one. This interval method can be really helpful when someone needs more frequent feedback to stay on track. For a child who has trouble interrupting during story time at home, consider setting a 5-minute timer. The rule is that there should be no more than 1 interruption in each 5-minute interval. If they succeed, they get a high five, praise. If they interrupt twice in the first 5 minutes, they don't get the high five, but when the timer resets, they have a brand new opportunity to succeed. Interval DRL breaks a big goal down into smaller, more achievable steps, which can build momentum and confidence along the way. It's a fantastic way to make progress feel more immediate. All right, let's talk about one more super clever type of DRL. This one is called spaced responding DRL. While other DRL methods focus on the total number of times a behavior happens, spaced responding DRL focuses on the time between behaviors. The main goal is to increase the amount of time that passes from the end of one instance to the beginning of the next. You are reinforcing the waiting. You're teaching someone to put more space, a longer pause, between their actions. It's about slowing the pace and encouraging less impulsive responses. Let's go back to our enthusiastic student who wants to answer every question. With spaced responding DRL, the focus isn't the total number of answers. Instead, you reinforce the student for waiting a certain amount of time before raising their hand again. For example, after the student answers, you start a secret timer. If they wait at least 3 minutes before raising their hand again, you call on them and praise them. Great job waiting before sharing that awesome idea, Michael. This is perfect for behaviors that happen in rapid-fire succession. Think of a child who eats so quickly they barely chew. Use spaced responding DRL by reinforcing them for waiting 20 seconds between bites. Make it a game, count down the seconds with them. When they wait, give praise or a small reward. You're not telling them not to eat, you're teaching them to slow down and pace themselves. It creates a healthier habit by targeting the space between actions. It reduces frequency without needing to count occurrences. Spaced responding DRL is different from other DRLs and from DRO. Why? Because the behavior still has to happen for reinforcement to be delivered. Reinforcement comes after the behavior, if it was preceded by the required waiting period. That makes it perfect for shaping skills that require pacing and timing, someone who talks too fast, a person who asks repetitive questions one after another, a child who takes way too many cookies from the jar at once. Spaced responding DRL helps them learn to take a breath, pause, and engage more thoughtfully. Alright, we've explored how to reduce behaviors with DRL, but what if you want a behavior to stop completely? I mean, gone, vanished, see you later. This is where our next superhero DRO comes into play. DRO stands for Differential Reinforcement of Other Behavior. Now, this name can be a little tricky. It sounds like you're reinforcing some other specific behavior, but that's not quite right. A better way to think of it is as reinforcement of zero responding. With DRO, you deliver reinforcement only when the problem behavior does not occur for a specific amount of time. It's a zero-tolerance policy for that particular behavior. If the behavior happens, the clock resets. Let's imagine a child who has a habit of sucking their thumb. They could use DRO by setting a timer for, let's say, 5 minutes. If the child goes the entire 5 minutes without once putting their thumb in their mouth, they get a reward when the timer dings, a sticker, a high five, a few minutes of a favorite cartoon. However, if at any point during that 5-minute interval they suck their thumb, the timer is immediately reset, and a new 5-minute countdown begins. The only way to get the reward is for the behavior to be completely absent for the whole time. The power of DRO is in its simplicity. You don't have to teach a new specific skill to replace the old one, like in DRA or DRI. You are simply reinforcing the absence of the problem. This makes it a great choice for serious problem behaviors that you want gone as quickly as possible, such as self-injurious behaviors or aggression. The focus is singular. Please refrain from engaging in this specific action, and good things will happen. It sends a very clear message that the absence of the behavior is what is being valued and rewarded, making the person less and less likely to engage in it over time. Think about it in another context. Maybe you're trying to stop biting your nails before a big event. You could set up a DRO schedule for yourself. You might decide that for every hour you go without biting your nails, you get to put $1 in a jar to save for something you really want. The moment you catch yourself biting a nail, the clock for that hour resets. You only earn the $1 if you make it through the full 60 minutes with 0 instances of nail biting. You are reinforcing the complete absence of the behavior, making it more and more rewarding to keep your hands away from your mouth. Just like with DRL, there are a couple of different ways to set up the game for DRO. Whole interval DRO. This is exactly what we described in the thumb-sucking example. You set a specific interval of time, and the problem behavior must be absent for that entire interval for the reinforcement to be delivered. If the behavior occurs for even a split second, the interval is over, the timer resets, and the person must start again. It's a very clear-cut system. Complete success for the whole time period equals a reward. This whole interval method is really effective, especially when you are first starting out trying to reduce a behavior, because it teaches the concept very clearly. The link between no thumb sucking for 5 whole minutes and I get a sticker is very direct and easy to understand. However, as the person gets better and the intervals get longer, it can sometimes be a bit challenging to monitor them for every single second of, say, a 30-minute interval. It requires constant vigilance, which isn't always practical. So what's another option? This brings us to our second method, Momentary DRO. In this version, you still set an interval of time, but you don't have to watch the person for every single moment. Instead, you only check for the behavior at the very end of the interval. It's like a surprise inspection. If the timer goes off after 10 minutes, you look at the person at that exact moment. If the problem behavior is not happening at that instant, they get the reinforcer, regardless of whether it happened 9 minutes ago. If they are engaging in the behavior at that specific moment of the check-in, they do not get the reward. Momentary DRO is a really practical tool for maintaining progress once a behavior is already on the decline. It's much easier to manage than watching someone continuously. For instance, a teacher could use Momentary DRO for a student who rocks in their chair. The teacher might set a timer for 15 minutes. When the timer dings, she glances over. If the student isn't rocking at that moment, they get a point. This is much more manageable than staring at the student for the full 15 minutes. The trade-off is that the behavior could have happened during the interval and still be reinforced, but it's often effective enough to keep the behavior at a very low level. Now, I know what you might be thinking. DRL and DRO sound kind of similar, right? They both involve timers and reducing how often a behavior happens. It's easy to get them mixed up, but there's one crucial difference that sets them apart. It all comes down to whether the behavior is allowed to happen at all. With DRL, differential reinforcement of low rates, the behavior is still acceptable, just less often. You are reinforcing a lower frequency. The person still gets the reward if the behavior stays below the set limit. Think back to our enthusiastic student. Using DRL, we allowed her to answer up to 5 questions in a lesson. She still got to participate. The goal was reduction, not elimination. This is perfect for behaviors that are fine in small doses. Asking for help, having a snack, participating in a conversation. You don't want to get rid of these behaviors. You want balance. DRL is the tool when the goal is less, not none. On the other hand, DRO, differential reinforcement of other behavior, aims for complete elimination. The behavior is not okay, not even once. You are reinforcing a rate of 0. The only way to earn the reward is for the behavior to be absent during the interval. If the thumb-sucking happens even for a second, the reward is off for that interval. DRO is used for behaviors you want gone entirely. Hitting, screaming profanities, running into the street. There is no acceptable level, so the goal is always 0. Ask yourself, reduce it or eliminate it. If less, DRL. If none, DRO. Both use reinforcement and timing, but their goals differ. DRL fine-tunes overuse. DRO makes the problem behavior disappear. Knowing this distinction is key. Alright, we've talked a lot about using reinforcement to create positive change. But how do you know what will actually work as a reinforcer? What one person finds motivating, another might find boring. You could offer me a pile of kale as a reward, and I'd probably laugh. But for someone else, that might be the best thing ever. Become a behavior detective. Before using differential reinforcement, figure out what the person truly wants. This process is called a preference assessment. It's about finding their why, their motivation, their personal currency. A preference assessment is a systematic way to discover what someone likes. There are a few simple ways to do this. The easiest is just to ask. Give options or ask, what would you like to work for today? Extra screen time. Trip to the park. Observe them in their natural environment. What do they choose to play with? What activities do they gravitate towards? What gets them excited? These choices give valuable clues. It's like gathering intel for your behavior change mission. For those who can't tell you, use structured methods. Single stimulus assessment. Do they reach for it? Do they smile? Paired stimulus assessment, multiple stimulus assessment, MSWO, multiple stimulus without replacement. After a pick, it's not returned. You see their second choice. You see their third choice. Key point, preference does not equal reinforcer. I might prefer a comfy couch over a hard chair, but I won't clean the whole house just to sit. Enter the reinforcer assessment. It confirms an item will actually increase a behavior. Test by asking for a simple task, such as clapping hands to retrieve the item. If the task increases, bingo, true reinforcer. Now your behavior plan has the fuel it needs to be successful. Now let's connect a few more dots. We briefly mentioned functional communication training, or FCT, when we talked about DRC. This concept is so important it deserves another look. FCT is the heart of teaching someone to use their words. FCT is the heart of teaching someone to use signs. FCT is the heart of teaching someone to use a device to get their needs met instead of using problem behaviors. The first step is figuring out the function of the behavior. Why is the child screaming? Is it to get attention, to escape a task, to get a toy? Once you know the why, you can teach them a more appropriate way to ask for that exact same thing. This is a powerful, respectful approach that honors the person's needs while changing their behavior. Let's also talk about something called stereotypic behavior, sometimes called stimming. These are the repetitive movements or sounds you might see, like hand flapping, rocking, repeating phrases. While these behaviors can sometimes interfere with learning, they often serve a very important purpose for the individual, like self-calming, providing sensory input. Differential reinforcement can be used to reduce these behaviors if they are causing harm or getting in the way, but it must be done carefully. Often the goal is not elimination, but teaching the person when and where it's appropriate, or providing a replacement that serves the same sensory need, like a fidget toy. Another piece of our puzzle is the inter-response time, or IRT. We touched on this with spaced responding DRL. The IRT is simply the amount of time that passes between two consecutive instances of a behavior. Measuring the IRT can give you amazing insights. If a child is asking for help every 30 seconds, their IRT is very short. A goal could be to use reinforcement to gradually increase that IRT to 2 minutes, then 5 minutes. Focusing on the IRT allows you to shape behavior in a very precise and gradual way. It's not just about how many times a behavior happens, but how it is spaced out over time, which can make a huge difference in how it's perceived. Preference assessments, FCT, IRT, stereotypic behavior. They help you understand the full picture. Behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. It has a purpose, a function, and a rhythm. Understand what a person wants, preference assessment, why they are doing what they do, functional communication, and the timing of their actions, IRT. You can create a differential reinforcement plan that is effective, compassionate, and respectful. You move from simply trying to stop a behavior to truly understanding the person and helping them find better ways to navigate their world. So, we have been on quite a journey together, haven't we? We've explored the amazing world of differential reinforcement, a powerful positive tool for shaping behavior. We started by seeing how we can all feel stuck in frustrating behavior loops. We discovered differential reinforcement is the secret sauce to get things moving in a better direction. We dove into the different flavors, DRA, DRI, DRC, DRA, teaching a positive alternative, DRI, finding a physically incompatible behavior, DRC, giving someone the power of communication. Behavior isn't just about stopping the bad stuff, it's about building up the good stuff. It's about being a gardener, not a weed whacker, nurturing the flowers you want to see grow. We learned to slow things down with the less is more DRL approach, full session, interval, spaced responding. These reduce behaviors that are fine in moderation but happen too often. For behaviors we want gone completely, DRO, the zero tolerance hero, DRO reinforces the complete absence of a problem. We clarified the key question, reduction or elimination. This family of strategies gives us a flexible, kind, effective toolkit. It shifts our focus from punishment to positive reinforcement. The true beauty is more than changing actions. It's changing relationships. Stop focusing on what's going wrong, celebrate what's going right. You become a source of positivity and encouragement. This builds trust and strengthens bonds with your child, your pet, your partner, and with yourself. It's compassionate and respectful, recognizing behaviors often try to meet a need. By understanding that need and teaching a better way, you empower others and build lifelong confidence and skills. Take these ideas and look for opportunities in your life. Start small. Notice a behavior and become a behavior detective. What's the alternative you'd like to see? What could you use as a reinforcer? Then try it. Catch someone being good. Reinforce that calm moment. Reinforce that polite request. Reinforce that patient waiting. See what happens. You have the power to be a positive force for change. Choose reinforcement over reaction and make the world kinder, happier, more supportive, one positive action at a time. Now go out there and be amazing. That wraps up Chapter 15, Differential Reinforcement. If this walkthrough was helpful, please give the video a like so that other students can find it too. You can always use the timestamps to review key sections or head to the playlist to continue with the next chapter. Subscribe to ChapterCast for more chapter-by-chapter study guides, and let me know in the comments which concept you'd like broken down next. Thank you for learning with ChapterCast, where textbooks become study-friendly lessons. See you in the next chapter, where we will explore antecedent interventions.